Seekers seem to be magnetically drawn to the death of the psychological self, like a moth to a flame. It's hypnotized by the incomprehensibility of the light and the warmth. It can't conceive of what this death will be like. And yet, it cannot look away. It's compelled and mesmerized by some invisible force to the end of itself. The self is a claiming momentum. It owns what arises, and the world revolves around it. Separation is utterly real for the self. It must be separate in order to stand in sovereignty and alter life for survival. The self is subconsciously preoccupied with the maintenance of existence. Individuals are not only attempting to survive physically, but psychologically as well. It lives in a consequential universe, having a differentiating construct of mind, though there is nothing to differentiate. It completely believes in itself and meaning of life, like believing in Santa Claus. The person obsessively seems to strive to become a better person. It wants to learn and get it right. But there is actually no way to get anything wrong. There is nothing apart that can make anything happen or prevent anything. Manipulation is futile. Yet the self needs a problem to solve so that it can perpetuate the illusion of itself as real. Everything the self seems to do is a failed attempt to avoid its own absence. It believes in its responsibility to become a capable, upright citizen, or morally superior, or the smartest person in the room, etc. And because everything rests on its shoulders, the self deeply fears its own absence. The self seems to blame itself for not living up to its imposed standards when it isn't blaming others. It's terrified of unconditional freedom, while that is the only thing it longs for. The self is looking for a thing, a clue, a sign, a state, a happening, anything to divert away from this immediacy. This immediacy appears as everything. It's simple and obvious. So simple that the seeker can't see it. And everythingness hides the obviousness, like a fish in search of water. It actually has never experienced anything other than this wholeness, as that is all there is. The self phenomenon isn't apart from this wholeness. It cannot really experience itself or existence, only ephemeral illusions of it. So how does surrender happen when there is no one to do it? There has never been a holding on. Letting go just is. Appearances are perpetually perishing. There is nothing to hold on to, and no one to hold on. Nothing the seeker seems to do or not do can cause or prevent what is already. Seeking can seem to avoid perceiving wholeness. It's self-sabotage for no one. And if it arises, there is no way to stop it. There is absolutely nothing wrong with seeking. It's a completely natural appearance that seems to need to exhaust itself. When it appears, it can't be avoided. Attempts to stop the seeking is more sophisticated seeking. It's as much an expression of wholeness as anything else. That seeking sense can collapse, and this continues, fully unencumbered by a claiming mechanism. After the collapse of the sense of the controller, thoughts and emotions are fully allowed and flow freely in an open system, moving through quickly without one who can resist. Thoughts and emotions are not avoided or transcended, and are now deeply perceived by no one. Liberation isn't about finally being happy, and it's not about someone who finally got it. This is freedom for what arises, not from what arises. The self doesn't surrender. It's conquered. The addiction to self is seen, and a simplicity is allowed. This is liberation from me, not for me. This isn't the end of something real. The self is an illusory belief system constructed by habitual thought that is bought into. It's a completely natural and innocent survival mechanism. This immediacy is so alive and full already that meaning and agency aren't needed. They're superfluous. There isn't a thought or a word that can touch this. This cannot be gotten wrong or right. It's done. It's hopeless. Give up the ghost, said no one to no one. There is only what is happening. There isn't even awareness of this by someone. This is empty of meaning and entities. There are only fleeting expressions in a non-stop flow of timelessness, ever arising and falling, unknowable, miraculous, awe-inspiring. The great wonder is that a person can seem to be. Apparent stories can play before apparent eyes, and it seems so real, doesn't it? Seeing nothing can be done is the freedom. Having no sense of will is the lifting of a ton of imagined weight off our shoulders.